Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, NBA Fantasy Life betting show. With your host, the big man got the big call, Big Johnny Stud at John Laghezza, with my friend and yours, the GOAT, Pete Overzet, and the other GOAT, Geoff Ulrich. Buen dia, gentlemen. How are you guys? Pete first. What's going on?
Doing good. Excited for Super Bowl week. I know some of it feels like it's been overshadowed by NBA trade deadline, but we are here to get things back on the rails, give you guys the picks, get you all situated for the big game.
How about you, Geoff? What's going on, man? Good morning.
Good. Just, busy week. Feel like I've pretty much bet every single market at this point, but happy to talk about it on the show and, give people some ideas for more bets, because that's, what makes the Super Bowl great, quite frankly. So,
yeah, the 2 weeks to prepare is a bit much for me. I did some granular stuff for the Betting Life newsletter. Everybody could check that out. It's free. If it's free, it's for me. That's what my mom always taught me. So we're going to be talking about the big game, of course, some prop bets. We're going to kick it over to Pete. Got a party prop sheet, some cool DFS stuff where, again, he is the man in these streets. And then we're going to get weird, and I think that's what we'll probably – I'll get back in. Hopefully, between these two wild and crazy guys, Mr. Geoff will keep us in line at least a little bit. He's going to be doing the best that he can. I guess we might as well just dive right into this bad boy, right? Like Wonka would say, so much to do, so little time to do it. Scratch that. Reverse it. I guess we might as well – what do we do? Let's start at the very beginning. This one is a little bit odd, although, and this might be a trend, gentlemen, throughout the show, when it comes down to these singular games with everything on the line, coaches do go in the bag and get weird, right? It doesn't just have to be a Dan Campbell thing. So, first things first, will a third player make a pass attempt? So that one's listed right now. We're using DraftKings Sportsbook, everybody. That one's listed at plus 180, which is a 35% implied probability. I think that's where this one comes down to, right? It's not really an objective kind of statement to say, yes, there will be or won't be. It's just whether or not you have a 1 out of 3 chance. Pete, what do you think about the third player making a pass? Could be anybody, lineman, wide receiver, and the likes.
Yeah, I think the smart money is probably on the no here. I know some teams have players that they're more willing to use the gadget stuff. Like if we were talking about the Niners, they've used Jawan Jennings for some of that kind of stuff before. I don't know. I'll throw it to Geoff if he has any more, intel on this, but it doesn't strike me that either the Chiefs or the Eagles kind of have that go-to gadget guy that they would actually draw up the play or trust to throw the ball in a key situation.
Yeah,
Geoff, get at it, man.
My inkling here is I kind of agree with Pete, like the smart money's probably on the under. Me being a non-smart person, I've already bet the over in this and I'm trying to find other ways to go about it. But I think when you look at these two teams, they're not really set up, like Pete said, to do this. I don't think the Eagles for sure. If I had to guess a team is going to have a third player come in and throw a pass, it's going to be the Chiefs because Andy Reid has 2 weeks to prepare. Maybe he's got some kind of like Kelsey to Mahomes thing in the bag or something like that. DeAndre Hopkins has thrown a few passes. I would be pretty shocked if Nick Sirianni went off script because he's got Saquon Barkley. He's got Jalen Hurts. He's just going to run the ball. And if he does go off script and it doesn't work, like he's going to get killed in Philadelphia. So I think that if we see a trick play, it's going to be the Chiefs. I do think there's a low probability. But like I said, this is kind of a fun one just to bet because you're going to be sweating the entire game. So I'm going to take it. But yeah, I don't know. I'd probably realistically, I feel like the true odds should be over plus 200.
Yeah, if I was going to just put a quick bow on it, I think it's a little bit of synergy between everybody here. And I think the Eagles' very, if not hyper predictable nature inside the red zone and green zone really takes this one off the scale for me. And to that point, the spread being so close, I don't see Andy Reid getting too creative, especially if we think that they are going to play to a 1-point spread and perhaps even be down, right? That's not the time to get cute when you have the best quarterback, in the universe, basically, maybe of all time. So I really wouldn't bother. Let's get the next one going. This one is a little bit more interesting. Probably has a better chance of going over based on what I was saying before, where it's total players per team to just make a reception. So just real quick, I'll lay out the pricing. We got Chiefs are over under 8.5. It's plus 180 to the yes, minus 175 to the no. I have a hard time going that way because, again, it could be Gray and you're going to get Worthy. You might get, Hopkins and Juju, obviously Kelsey. You might get a catch from both of the backs. Kansas City not really, actually, Pete, you can tell I listen to your work. He talks about target trees often. And I actually like to relate that to actual trees, where like a short and stubby one is a bonsai, and a really tall, kind of thick one would be a redwood. Philly is a redwood, very predictable. We know where it's going. Kansas City, not so much. So I think that's where I'd be on its surface, is I'm more of an over for the Chiefs, under for the Eagles. Eagles is 5.5, which again feels very low for a game that we might be expecting some degree of creativity in the bag. Plus 100 to the yes, minus 130 to the no. That one a little more palatable as far as pricing. Jeff, you want to start this one off?
Yeah, the Eagles one is pretty interesting, man. I mean, 6 players is really low, like to hit an over. We've got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Goddard, and probably Saquon Barkley are locks. That's 4 players right there. But then you go through their roster, like you said, John, and it's like, who else is catching passes? Calcutta, the backup tight end. Calcaterra, Kenneth Gainwell, maybe Dotson catches a pass. Dotson's like over-under is one catch. So I think I'm kind of with you. I think that I'd rather actually take the plus 140 on the Chiefs, who have like 4 wide receivers that they spread the ball out to, 3 backs who could catch a pass, and Kelsey and Noah Gray. So yeah, I would probably lean Chiefs here for an over. Probably just stay away from the Eagles. Although the Eagles, like I said, it's such a low number. But I think you made a good example there at the start. Like their route tree is just like it's 3 guys. So I don't know. Lean a little bit with the Chiefs here. Probably just stay away from the Eagles.
Pete, how about you take overall on the play and then whether or not you'd actually pull the trigger?
I kind of like the Eagles over in that I do think, obviously, there's the big 3 in the passing game. Barkley's going to catch a pass. I do think Kenny Gainwell is going to catch a pass in this game. They still like using him in those 2-minute situations. That gets us to 5. And so then you're just saying, can you bink one random catch to Jahan Dotson, to Calcaterra? I kind of think you can. So I like having kind of the moat of that really low number. It almost feels like it's kind of overreacting to a super condensed offense. So I'd rather take shots on that and then maybe play it the other way and say, hey, what if the Chiefs do condense a little bit more in the Super Bowl? We've seen Xavier Worthy really step up. We know Travis Kelce becomes a focal point of the offense. And we've already seen guys like Justin Watson be pretty relegated in this offense. If all of a sudden Juju comes in, is running the majority of those 3 wide receiver sets, I feel like these numbers might be kind of tricking us in that the Eagles might be a little more expanded and the Chiefs could be a little more condensed.
No, I think those are all really great points. And kind of what I was saying, it comes down to how creative do you think this gets? Although Pete, not knowing it, he and I just had our first kind of mind meld. And the answer to the Phillies over might be the same as the Jahan Dotson. So Dotson's reception prop, guys, is 1/2 a catch. And it's the same minus 130. So it's funny that you mentioned that, Pete, because when I was boiling this down, that's what I came down to. Will Dotson make a catch? Decided to go check on that number. And those 2 things are probably in line. Me, I like to keep it simple, not that bright. If I were going to touch this Eagles one, I'd probably default to the Dotson if I like the over, right? If I like the under where Jeff is, then I think you pull the trigger on that, just expecting that there might not be a high pass volume. They're going to keep the target tree set. But again, you do always have to be kind of reticent, right? That the ball could get spread around, something that, definitely happens. All right, now we got one really long shot before we take our... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so in the last Super Bowl that these guys played 2 years ago, it was 7 pass catchers for the Chiefs and 7 for the Eagles who caught passes. So you would have threaded that needle there. And it was, the equivalent of Jahan Dotson on this offense 2 years ago was Quez Watkins. He caught 1 pass for 8 yards. And so that's the kind of stuff you're trying to guess. And Boston Scott caught a pass there too, where they got that third or that second running back involved. So not that 1 game sample size is everything, but pretty interesting. It was 7-7 last time these 2 teams faced each other.
9 is a lot
also,
for the Chiefs. Like now that I'm running the numbers in my head, 9 pass catchers in a game for any team is actually quite a bit. So maybe Pete talked me into just staying off the Chiefs. I don't know.
Well, funny, these might tie into each other where maybe if you think that, maybe it leads us into our next one. They call that a segue in the biz. This one a bit of a long shot. Any QB to catch a pass or any offensive lineman to score a TD which kind of are right in that same kind of weird bag. They're both plus 1,600. Now, again, I just think these things kind of lean into each other, right? If you think these teams go over with receivers, then you think something's going to get a little strange, in particular, like you said with Geoff, with the 9, right? Even with a creative team, 9 is definitely a high line. I usually like to shoot for lower expectations, something that I know you mentioned in your betting work as well. So I'd probably not chase these. I know they're fun, but even as a responsible bettor, I always like to preach units. Whenever you're at this kind of level of long odds, you should be probably thinking in terms of a tenth of a unit or a quarter of a unit. That said, these things do add up. So I'd like to keep it realistic. I don't think these are great bets. So quarterback to catch a ball or offensive lineman to score a TD. Either one of you like this at all? How about Pete? Why don't you lead us off?
Well, I will just say I don't necessarily like this, but like you were saying, of these dovetailing with the other ones we were talking about, how many players on a team catch a pass? Is there someone else who throws a pass other than the quarterback? These all do correlate with each other. So betting them in the same direction makes sense, because if you're right on one of these, you're probably going to be right on all of these, derivatives of essentially the same thing. So I would just say, if you're building out a big sports betting card, like I know Geoff is, you want to have some, coherency or consistency to those picks. And these do seem to correlate in a big way with each other.
No, I don't see it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like it's almost like a ladder bet in some ways, right? Like you take the over with some of these team totals, and then you take like a lineman to score a touchdown or a QB to catch a pass, because lineman's probably going to catch a pass if he scores a touchdown, right? So again, I think John makes a good point. These aren't great odds, like plus 1,600. I wouldn't bet these on their own, but sure, if you're building out a card or something, you want a little bit of exposure. Say you took the over on the Chiefs or something, adding in one of these for just like a microscopic unit bet up. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, look, it's the Super Bowl, it's the last game, so bet responsibly. But these aren't ones I would go crazy on. But at the very least, you're probably going to get a fun sweat when you get in the red zone, especially if all of a sudden you see Patrick Mahomes roll out and an offensive lineman waving his hands in the end zone. You could be the star of your Super Bowl party.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes to something that Pete will talk about when he's doing any showdown stuff, to be consistent, right? We don't know exactly what's going to happen. Draw up your narrative, right? Obviously data backed, but then be consistent with it, right? So if you think you're going to go over on the pass catchers, then that lends itself to maybe the offensive lineman getting the TD, right? I just don't like to be too kind of cattywampus with these things. So, all right, everybody, let's take just a quick break. Get ready to witness the 59th battle for the Lombardi Trophy with new era cap. Love new era caps. The Chiefs and Eagles have claimed their conference titles and are heading to New Orleans for the ultimate showdown, where they're rooting for the AFC or NFC champions. New era cap has the official playoff celebration caps worn by the pros, gearing for a shot at eternal glory with the official cap of Super Bowl 59. And I can tell you, you will never catch me without my new era Yankee hat. Little bonus promo from there. I've been wearing those fitted caps since the days of Jay-Z. So, all right, I think that's enough business. Let's have some more fun. Guys, thank you so much for, making my first experience at this kind of go seamlessly. I was absolutely terrified of face planting and bothering everybody with a production tag on Slack at like 6 a.m. So, all right, let's push it a little bit forward. I guess we're getting a little bit weird here. Let's call it semi-weird. We're looking for plus 300 or longer. Now, these are really kind of interesting because they are technically long shots, but also not really long shots when we're in this kind of arena. So just first things first, people, I just, not to be too boomerish, but being responsible and being sustainable in the betting market has always been my claim to fame, and why I've been able to bet on something like baseball every day for a decade. You gotta be in the game in order to make an impact. So if I mentioned a tenth of a unit at a plus 1,600, we're generally betting around the unit for kind of more standard plays. I'm probably around a half unit or a third of a unit here. Guys, I just, I hate to be too kind of nerdy with that stuff, but I really do think it matters. We don't want to get anybody in trouble. Pete, would you like to lead us off with your favorite 300 bet or better? Where's the long shot money today?
Man, yeah, I feel like, I'm not as deep in the weeds as Geoff with some of these kind of derivative markets, but some of the stuff that I like to think about are kind of like tail outcomes on some of these player performances, and essentially whether you're doing a ladder on a book where you can do an SGP, or if you're on Underdog where I do a lot of mine, and you can do a slide. I'm really liking some of the alt slides for receivers like Devontae Smith and Xavier Worthy. These are guys who, when they do hit, they generally hit in a big way, and they're capable of having big plays. And I tend not to like the median numbers of just like, clearing their 49.5-yard prop. I want to think about what if they get loose for a big play or two, and we get up into the, 100 range. So even just sliding both Devontae Smith and Xavier Worthy, which I talked about in an Underdog, to each have 100 yards, that's a 50x payout on Underdog. So playing some of those big play threats as getting loose there and really just smashing their median line is something I'm pretty into this week.
Oh, baby. When he said 50-1, I tensed up a little bit there. I know what app I'll be looking at right afterwards. How about you, Geoff? You have any semi-long shots for us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love the alternate line calls by Pete, too. I mean, I think that generally, especially in an efficient market like this, like looking at the alternate lines, especially at this point in the week, you're probably like going to be better off. Again, and John makes a good point. These wouldn't be like full unit bets on like Devonta Smith to go for 100 yards or whatever. But I wrote up something similar. It's going to be on the site on Friday with Juju Smith-Schuster and his reception props, which you can sort of alt up to like 4 or 5 receptions on DraftKings. So that's one route. I'm going to give you a couple other of those. I think one of the best just pure value bets out there is probably just Jalen Hurts MVP at plus 350. We're talking about the quarterback for a team who's like, a 1-point underdog. And he's plus 350. I mean, generally we see quarterbacks go off much shorter than this. And I know Saquon Barkley is there, but I think that's a really good price if you're looking for a semi-long shot on Jalen Hurts. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, a guy I'm apparently going to be heavily invested in this week. Anytime touchdown plus 500. Route rate went up 58% of the snaps last week. I think just with the matchup with the Eagles, Juju's actually going to be fairly important for the Chiefs in this game. We'll see. That could also blow up in my face given how many receivers the Chiefs have. But I do like Juju for an anytime touchdown. I think that's a decent number of plus 500, but really like that Hurts one at plus 350. I think if you're looking for an MVP and you like the Eagles, that's kind of a good way to play it.
Yeah, I would have to just say from a macro standpoint, there's a compelling argument to be made. If you like the Eagles, you probably save yourself some money, maybe dial down that risk and make sure that you at least get a piece, right? I often deal in quarter units. I know it can be a bit much. My wife will probably agree, but I think it's really important to do that, to try and, I call them hybrid bets, to try and just maximize the kind of a progressive payout, right? If you like it, I mean, Geoff, you really nailed it. It's a 1-point spread. The QB is oftentimes the MVP. It really just makes sense. Mine is, just again, it's a DraftKings game special, which, man, people, if you have a little bit of time, just go comb through the menu. It's like Cheesesteak Factory over there. It just goes, it's like a phone book. So mine is, let me just make sure I have it exactly. Okay, it's Xavier Worthy. Hold on, let me just make sure I wanted the number. Okay, so it's Xavier Worthy to lead the game in receptions at plus 350. So I'm going to accidentally do a good job tying in all the stuff that we've been talking about. I like the Eagles. I like the Eagles to win. But even if I don't like them to win, I think they're going to keep it close. I think there's going to be a low pass volume on their side. As much as I like the Chiefs' defense, the run defense has fallen apart a bit, and they have not faced the likes of Philadelphia. So that said, Worthy has led the Chiefs in reception since, I think it's week 11. Not to pick these arbitrary points, but I do think you have to keep trajectory in mind when we're talking about rookies, right? The post-bye rookie bump and all that stuff. But there really is something to be said about continuity, about preparations, and in chemistry, especially when you're talking about Patrick Mahomes. Worthy's work ethic has been something that Reed has talked about, and we've then seen it. So, again, not to pick like some random point, but when you're leading a team in the Super Bowl in receptions for, at this point, what's like a 9-week span, there might be something there. There's also only a handful of players that could do this. Worthy also occupies lots of parts of the field, right? We've seen them create opportunities for him, right? He's the part of that. He's a big part of that bonsai that I was mentioning before. So being one of the main volume guys in this game, I think Xavier Worthy has a great chance at plus 350 to lead the game in receptions. All right, next up.
That's an interesting one.
Oh,
I think that really works with
a little bit of
the Eagles,
validation
obviously.
for the experts. Nothing wrong with that.
You said, though, you have to think about game script and plan it out. I mean, I think there's a good chance the Eagles do have a low passing volume, which would obviously really help Worthy. You're probably, and in that case, you're really just going up against Kelsey, right? So, yeah, plus 350.
Yeah,
actually
Eagles
seems
defense is
good.
also very good, and I think speed is the one ultimate neutralizer. So that's probably your best bet to beat them, right? And again, we're not Andy Reid. I don't pretend to be, although I may be pushing his gene size soon. You have to think about the current situation and just how you might clear that hurdle. All right, fat jokes aside, this part is the one I was really looking forward to. Pete, you are the man with the plan right now with your party prop sheet. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so I put this together for Fantasy Life. Everyone, I assume, is familiar with the concept of a party prop sheet. You know, there are going to be some fantasy sports betting related things in there, but we also got to have a little fun. This is where we get to check in on the coin toss, something I know you're really passionate about, John, where we check in on the color of the Gatorade. And I also tried to add some, put my finger on the zeitgeist here, get some stuff, relevant to this specific game. I have one in here. Will there be a hurdle attempted in this game? Everyone watched Saquon Barkley have, arguably the greatest hurdle of all time. I kind of think this is a fun one. Back in his younger days, we would see Travis Kelce try to attempt some hurdles here. Obviously, Barkley, a candidate. So yeah, we have a pretty nice smorgasbord here, and I'll go ahead and plug it too. You can go to Fantasy Life. I have an article around the picks where I kind of give you some of my thoughts, a little editorializing about it, but there's also a print option here. So you can literally print these out, have everyone at your party fill them out, and they are all gradable there as well. And then you can see who's the winner of your Super Bowl party.
Yeah, I think I'm not as much fun as I like to think I want to be, or at least am when it comes to gambling, right? Because I do this stuff at a high level and even professionally, I hate the word expert, but sometimes I need to let it go and have a little bit of fun. And I think this is a great way to do it, right? Because you could do it with friends and family. You could kind of play tournament style. You could set your own, wager limits. You could even play for fun stuff like M&Ms with your kids at the end of the day. I know my kids are already asking about the National Anthem and Gatorade color and stuff like that. So I really think that there is a place to have some fun. Again, for all the, I'm really kind of a goofball. When I get between the lines, I tend sometimes it can almost be a little too serious. But again, Pete, is one of the reasons I've always been such a huge fan of your work, because I think you so seamlessly kind of move between, right? You're a lot of fun to listen to. You present it in a fun way, but it's winning material, right? This is not goofy stuff. Geoff, you have any takes on just the party prop stuff in general?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I'm kind of the same way. I agree. Like, these things are good to help people loosen up. They also help with, if you have some non-gamblers in the room, it just helps keep them entertained during the game. So I love some of these too. Like, will A.J. Brown be caught reading a self-help book? I would even say if you're hosting a party, you could create a big pot and you should have people guess what book he's going to read. And then, if someone actually guesses it, they should get some sort of bonus. I don't know. These are just things I'm making up on the flyer, but I love that one. Jason Kelce chugging a beer on camera. Again, these are things that can just keep you occupied through the whole game. You're just going to be looking for Jason Kelce. At some point, he probably will show up too. So, yeah, these are great. The talking animal on a commercial. I love the commercials too. The commercials are my favorite part. So that's something I would be interested in. But yeah, definitely check this out. And if you are hosting a party, you should print it out and use it, because this would probably make your party better. So.
Oh, let me take just to that one thing before we do a quick word from Bud Light here is that's a fantastic idea and something that I found really kept those non-gambler and casual players engaged. I know it's kind of boomerish. The physical paper in this scenario is a huge deal. It really is. Fun to mark, fun to grade, people checking, people Xing, circling, and crossing off and stuff like that. It really kind of lends into the fun aspect. Again, one of those things that doesn't always pay the bills, but just makes life a little bit enjoyable. Again, we only go around the carousel once. All right.
John,
I need a quick breath because I've done quite a bit of talking. Let's get a quick read from Bud Light.
Okay.
Hey, you're not actually allowed to drink in a beer commercial?
Since when?
You gotta wait till it's done. Oh,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
And we're back. All right, just enough time for me to take one breath. Next section here, I've got to be honest, because it's the only way I know how to be. I'm just not a fan of at all. So I'm going to do more listening than talking. Maybe I'll learn something, and maybe you guys can sell me on it. What we're talking about is these race to point bets. They've really gained a little bit of popularity, which is funny. On it again, if you follow my work at all, people, please do make sure you subscribe to the Betting Life newsletter. It's free. I love team totals, especially when betting football, and especially in terms of an underdog, because it sets a fixed point that you don't have to chase, right? And then when a team is up 3 touchdowns, sometimes they'll allow the other team to get to 17 or 21. So who cares? But in a game like this, with such high leverage, with such a close spread, I'm just really not a big fan of the race to points. I almost feel like you should just bet either the full game team total, or you should bet the spread, right, the outright kind of game line, because in a race, isn't it going to come down with efficient offenses to who wins the coin flow? Well, there's that coin toss again. So without knowing who's going to get it first, I'd really not rather race to 7, because there could be an opening drive touchdown and then you're kind of out. So I just don't really see the edge. Pete, do you have anything maybe I'm missing, which I'm totally open to?
No, I mean, I definitely don't see the edge necessarily. And like we're talking about, a lot of these markets are extremely efficient. There's a lot of math and algorithms that go into pricing these. And so then the thing I think about is there good entertainment equity with this? Is this actually a fun thing to sweat? Because again, unless you're doing this professionally and you're hunting for every inefficient line, which isn't necessarily the goal of this show, then you should be having fun with it. And to me, those aren't the funnest sweats. I'd almost rather do some of the, who is going to be the game high leader in receiving yards? Can you go with some contrarian picks there because these offenses are spread out, or maybe take a long shot on a non-Barkley, performer to lead the game in rush yards. Those to me are a little funner sweats than the race to points, but I'm happy to hear counter arguments if someone could sell me on this being a fun bet.
Geoff, you're up next.
I think it's fun if you go to the higher numbers. Like if you go to like race to 30 points, because then you're just cheering for points all the time. Like taking Kansas City to score 30 plus points. Like I think that would be a pretty good sweat generally. You're cheering for points all the time because you want this to be a high scoring game. It's plus 280, so the payout's a little bit bigger. But I agree with you guys. Like, this isn't something that I generally ever dive into. But I think just talking it through, especially for people just looking at it, is interesting. If you like the Eagles to get out in front, taking them up to get to 20 points first at plus 115 does make a little bit of sense. If you think they're the better team and they're potentially undervalued, I guess you could add that into like a money line bet or something like that. But I think for entertainment, if I was doing this, I would probably go up to like 30 points and just take maybe the Chiefs and just say, I just want to see Patrick Mahomes score some points. I can just cheer harder for that. But there's probably I'm like Pete. I like to get into the props, and I would much rather bet like AJ Brown alternate line or to lead the game or something like that than probably get into this too much.
All right. Of course, I have the Cheshire Cat smile going because we're here talking about fun, and my take is just such a wet blanket. Although I do think I might be able to sell one of you on this. Check this out. Pete, absolutely correct about sharpness in markets, but I do think when they open up these Cheesecake Factory menus, maybe sometimes a bit of light can creak in under the door. Check this one out. Race to 25 points, neither, right? So meaning, both teams would have to cap at 24. The game total is 48.5. Now, granted, one team could kind of go ballistic and blow this up, but at plus 180, doesn't this feel like a pretty decent supplement to an under narrative, right? Again, just if you don't believe that we're going to see a lot of scoring because you believe in, the Eagles defense, very easy to believe in. Jones and Tranquil, Karlaftis on the other side, easy to believe in. That if we just get a bit of a dogfight and we go under, that neither gets to 24, and you actually get some nice exposure. Plus, Jeff's nodding, I'm digging it. Just really quick before we move on, Geoff, did I kind of miss something obvious? Because I see this and I'm like, ooh, not say this is a smash. This is a smash. If you like the under, it should be part of your portfolio.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the alternate line unders right now on DraftKings, and I think you're actually pretty dead on here. Because under, if you take it down to 43.5, the under is still only plus 155. So I think at the very least, if you are betting an under or like taking an alternate under, you should probably add in like John's idea of going neither 25, because the odds are just quite a bit bigger. So yeah, I agree. Like that's again, that's why we're bringing up all these markets, right? We're trying to find some ways to kind of add to your bets and stuff like that. I like that one. And definitely, I mean, look, we see defensive struggles break out. Remember that Super Bowl versus the Patriots and Rams? I mean, it can get ugly sometimes. So I don't think that's how this is going to go, but certainly we have a couple pretty good defenses as well. People forget. So yeah, I like that call out quite a bit.
Yeah, any of those like 24, 23 kind of outcomes fall firmly into the range of the books. Now the moment I've all been waiting for. Pete is going to talk to us about some DFS. Just again, really quick, Pete, man, I've glazed this guy like a donut today, but it's my first chance to work with him, and it really is the truth. Because, again, I just relate to your work so much. Pete, I could not win anything until I started following the likes of you and some other sharp people in the DFS community. The only word I'm going to say is being unique. Because when I was a square, even though I understand the games and I'm good, it's the truth, and understand risk management, and these are not things I need to be, taught on. I would come into work on Monday and be crying. I scored 215 points and I didn't win anything. Because everybody scored 215 points. All the chalk went bananas, and it's not about raw score. So I'd like to hat tip you for just kind of adding a wrinkle or two to my generally flat brain, because it's the truth. I would just look for these raw score. It's just not how you do it. It's not how you do it. And if you have an inkling, something you speak about a lot, if you have an inkling that could separate you from the crowd, where it's not about, again, the points, it's when you hit, how big you hit, right? And that led into me, actually, I've had some really nice runs now. So, again, hat tip and thank you. But you want to talk to us in a showdown, and this game in particular, what you think about the DFS slate?
Yeah, and so for people who aren't familiar, Showdown is just single game DFS. Typically, on DraftKings, you're building out 9 roster spots for the classic slate. But for this, we just have 6 total players, and then there's a captain. And that captain gets a 1.5x multiplier. And then there still are the salary constraints here. You can only spend up to $50,000. And most of these contests are extremely top heavy. Obviously, the flagship with the big prizes. And what happens is, because there are less options for players on a main slate, say we got 10 games, it's like no one's going to have the same lineup. But on the Super Bowl slate, where there's obviously good plays, people are going to get funneled to the same things over and over again. And we know a lot of people are going to use Patrick Mahomes as a captain. A lot of people are going to use Barkley and Jalen Hurts as a captain. And so then it's starting to get fun of saying, what if I build out a different story? And similar to how we were talking about building out your sports betting card in a correlated fashion, so stuff is, working together. If you're right, you're really right across the whole portfolio. The same thing is true for a DFS lineup. You want to build a story of a game flow. And I think this game is super fun for that, in that we have basically not seen either the Chiefs or the Eagles be forced into truly negative game scripts where they're down 2 scores. And we haven't seen what those offenses look like. So a lot of the median projections for these teams are baked into them being front runners. Saquon Barkley's rushing prop line is 22.5. It's like, well, what if they get down and they can't give him the ball 23 times? These are the things I like to think about with Showdown. And then to get back to your original question, as far as the captain stuff, Barkley, Mahomes, Hurts, Worthy, and Kelsey are looking like they're going to be the most popular captains. What I'm looking for in a captain is someone who can go nuclear, drop those 30 points. And this gives us a lot of good candidates, specifically on the Eagles side. I would mention both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, because of their elevated salaries, because their production has been a little spotty throughout the playoffs. They're flying under the radar. And I think if this team is forced to throw, either of those Eagles players could pop off for monster games and be really good, sneaky captains that would also help you differentiate from the field.
Yeah, if I could add one quick thing to that, just expand a touch, is in this particular scenario, and in particular with the players that you're talking about, because of the targetry that I mentioned before, to tie it all in, is there's a world where one of those players go off without the quarterback going off, right? That could just absolutely happen, where Hurts has a 191. Let's say he throws one. But the majority of that went to A.J. Brown, right? He was, and again, that can happen. In a single game, really, anything could happen, which I've kind of learned. And my gut is probably to lean into the defensive stuff because I don't think anyone is going to be doing that. I want to go to Geoff real quick, but Pete, just keep it in mind because I'm going to come back to you. When it comes to showdown, in particular the captain, because I get this question a lot. In a single game, let's even call it a single entry, I find myself not getting cute at captain and then kind of building around it. So just keep that one in the front of your mind. I don't want to lose it. Geoff, you have anything on DFS? I know you and I are more betting guys, and again, I try and do more listening than talking in that arena, but absolutely, if you have anything for DFS, lay it on us.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think Saquon Barkley's obviously going to be a humongously popular approach. So I think that, being contrarian off that makes a ton of sense. Just taking the A.J. Brown idea a bit further. I mean, I think it's a great matchup for Dallas Goedert as well. I don't know if that's getting too kind of crazy to go for your captain, but certainly you will have a more unique build if you start with Dallas Goedert. But I do like, at the very least, I like pairing Hurts and Goddard in either in a lineup or with one of them as captain. So really like the matchup for him. He's sort of surpassed Devonta Smith a little bit for me in terms of just target share and in the playoffs. But, again, like these are all thinking about, leaving salary on the table can be a big thing. Like the Chiefs have a ton of cheap pass catchers. Like Juju is 2,000. Samaje Perine is like 1,200. So, there's a lot of different ways where you can get unique just by leaving yourself $3 or $4 grand and just using one of those pass catchers with the Chiefs. They're going to be really hard to target, but some of these Chiefs pass catchers are going to be extremely low owned as well. So.
All right, Pete, I want to ask about long shot plays. And then again, if you could tie in the captain stuff, if not, maybe I'll just blow up your DMs later on.
Yeah,
how important are long shot plays in a single game scenario, right? How focused should we be? And then again, should we be pushing them up into the captain spot, or should that be reserved for chalk, even in a unique scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I do think you can get down, Geoff mentioned Dallas Goedert. I think he and maybe Hollywood Brown and Kareem Hunt would kind of be my cutoff that I would do for a captain. I could see Kareem Hunt having 2 touchdowns. I could see Dallas Goedert leading the Eagles in wide receiver. After that, you're down into the kickers, the defense, the Pachecos, the DeAndre Hopkins. It's just a little thinner for me to say these guys could go for 30 points. So I would kind of have a cutoff on my captain there. But then as far as the flex, one of the ways to get unique is to use one of these really ancillary players. And one thing that's tough for people who I don't think play a lot of showdown is you really have to reorient your brain and say, if one of these guys who costs less than $2,000 has a touchdown or has one big play, I mentioned Justin Watson getting phased out of the offense. I wouldn't consider him in a lot of stuff, but I'd consider him in showdown because he's going to be so unique. And we do know that the Chiefs are willing to go deep into their pass catching stable in some of these big moments. So there are a few different ways to get unique, obviously with your captain, with going off the board with a flex play. Geoff mentioned leaving salary on the table. You can also do weird constructions, right? One that I've been batting around in my head is if you play Barkley or Hurts as a captain, that in itself is not unique, but you had all Chiefs on the rest of your flex spots. Essentially saying, what if Barkley or Hurts consolidate all of the fantasy points, which wouldn't be insane, right? With the tush push or Barkley ripping off big plays, and then no one else gets in the mix. We've seen games where the entire pass game is essentially muted because one of those guys is getting all the touchdowns, and then you get a really unique construction because most people want to correlate their captain with some teammates because it's easier to build out a story around that. So there's a lot of different ways to get unique, but the main thing is you need to be pulling one lever, at least one lever in these lineups to getting unique. Otherwise, you're going to show up to the contest and you're going to be sharing the same lineup with 400 of your closest friends.
Dude, that was really good. You should probably do this for a living. Anyway, so thank you for addressing the captain thing. And just for me, I like to always kind of, like I say, put a bow. And that's a great, if you want to call it like a differentiating factor, is I'm asking myself, can they get 2 touchdowns? If the person can get 2 touchdowns, they can qualify for a captain spot. If they can't score 2 touchdowns, leave them to the side. Guy like Justin Watson, to your point before, with these kind of weird tertiary players, he went 260-1 in that Pittsburgh game in the middle of the season. This guy's like under $1,000 in DFS. He catches a long touchdown. He's going to be critical to winning. And I think that's where my point was going before is I don't think many people are going to play him at the captain, so you just kind of need him in the flex. All right, next to stacks, Geoff, you mentioned Goddard. I know we only have 2 teams to pick from when we're looking at stacks. I don't even know, like, how do you want to go about it? Is it alphas across the board, right? Are you looking for Brown and Devonta Smith? Or do you think the key is to nail down the one alpha and then the weird player, of course, cost is always going to be at the center of this also?
Yeah, I mean, Goddard's cheap enough where you could probably include him with like if you went A.J. Brown captain and then put like Hurts and Goddard or something like that. Like, I think he's cheap enough you could include him. But if I was playing the Eagles passing game, I would probably just pick one. Like, I would pick like Devonta Smith and roll with him. I think A.J. Brown is definitely a good captain spot. Goddard, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's obviously like thinner play, but it could happen. I would probably, if I was using Goddard, maybe think about putting Hurts in the captain and then Goddard in the flex and then going all KC though, because again, we talked about this, like the Eagles have a very condensed target share. So it usually ends up like one guy ends up going off. Like in the last game, A.J. Brown went off. I think I may have mentioned this before, but like Goddard went for 170 yards in that game against New Orleans, and I think he caught like so many passes. So almost no one else on the Eagles did anything in that game. So it's just a good example of what can happen with one of these pass catchers on the Eagles. But I do like the matchup. The Chiefs are weak against the tight end. So I think Goddard, that will lend itself to Goddard being popular. But again, it doesn't just, everyone's going to be popular. It's a 1-game slate, right? So you just have to think about the rest of your lineup build and how you can get unique around him. So you don't have to fade a player just because he's going to be popular. That's something else to remember, but definitely think about your lineup construction as a whole. And if that's going to be super chalky, then you probably want to think about ways to differentiate.
Yeah, I love that. Again, just to the narrative based, in the case where I like the Eagles and I'm kind of leaning towards lower pass volume, I can see a Barkley, Goddard on the Eagles side, and then what Pete's saying, and then you lean into Kansas City trying to play the catch up, and then just hopefully you nail that kind of, less thought about piece just to get the touchdown. Could be Noah Gray, right? We've seen Gray have these kind of 4 for 45 games. He could fall into the end zone quite easily. And if we want to give Reed credit, it's got to be, again, in that green zone, they're very creative, although when they did that ring around the rosy thing, I was not a huge fan. Even I kind of draw the line to creativity. But we have seen them do that. So I really like that. You guys are helping me kind of build it in my mind as we go. But this is a betting show, so let's put the DFS in the rear view. We'll just take one quick second to tip our hats to the fine people at DraftKings real quick. Super Bowl 59 is right around the corner. It's the perfect time to get in on the action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook right now. They're giving all new customers $200 in bonus bets. Woo! Instantly after betting just $5. All right. This is your shot to make every last play a moment to be remembered. Don't wait. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up. Use the code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. Man, after that last segment, got to think we put people in a pretty good spot to kind of capitalize. Hopefully doing the plus EV thing here on the Betting Life show. All right, next up, I mentioned 2 wild and crazy guys. Bitch F, I think you might be a little crazier than you let on, man. Maybe me and Pete will welcome you into the Insanity Club. So we're going to do crazy bets. But first, we've talked about the coin flip a few times. I'm going to try to not absolutely melt down like I did off air earlier. Okay, people. As quickly and calmly as I can, with mindfulness meditation in mind, okay? This is fun. It's right off the bat. Anybody could pick it, right? You can't really handicap it. That said, do not pay juice for this, not even 1 cent. If you want to gamble on the coin flip, the good people at DraftKings actually lowered the price to plus 100, where you can have some fun. And if I could give one other short piece of betting advice, in these scenarios, if you're in a position to get comps or free meals or any kind of player points, that's when you do it. You bet both sides at plus 100. They don't take a vig. You're going to wash it out and build up those crowns. Sorry, not sorry to the sports books that just are like, oh, man, But it really is the truth. But I would not pay even minus 101. Find somebody at home or a reputable sports book doing even money. Let me, without naming names, trends are stupid. There is no such thing. These are independent events, and anybody saying otherwise, man, they were not paying attention for the very first minute of the very first class in statistics or risk management or gambling. They're probably too busy doing something. So now that I did my Yosemite Sam kind of grumble, Pete, where's your edge on the coin flip? Did you know Kansas City won the last 3?
Yeah, John, I've got to feel like you have your head in the sand because Tails truly hasn't failed in the past decade. It's gone 6-4 here. That seems pretty statistically significant to me. I don't see why Tails doesn't keep rolling here. John, I'm sticking with the trends, and I'm going with Tails.
How dare you keep a straight face during that? How dare you? At least I had the decency, to totally blow up on that. Walking inside, Geoff, again, it can be fun, and I think it is a fine bet to make. In fact, it's a better bet to make than most anything else in the casino, right? If we're really talking brass tacks, when you walk into a casino, you do not have a straight up 50-50 chance at most anything, and if you do, you're not going to get it at plus 100. So from a betting standpoint, I think that's really it. But Geoff, now see if you can aggravate me out of my chair also.
I mean, this is a bet even I don't think I can find a way to lose on, but yeah, I'm just gonna roll with Tails. It never fails. I mean, I can't believe people talk about the coin flip and trends and what people have done. It's just a coin flip. It's just it's 50-50 every time. I mean, it's don't bother with it. Just pick a side and roll with it. Just if you like heads, if you always pick heads. Pick heads. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about the coin flip, unfortunately. I would like to get one of those coins in my house that they actually use. The ceremonial coins. They look cool, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's deeply unserious stuff to go beyond that. But I think not paying juice is good advice. I think ignoring the dependence of events, I think is good advice. But other than that,
shout
anyone
out to
telling you
DraftKings
otherwise,
for putting this at plus 100. Good.
It's really just silly. So speaking of silly. At the end of the big game, coaches are known to get showered in Gatorade. Pete, what's your take on Gatorade color, if any?
Big trends guy here again, John. Past 2 Super Bowls have been purple. The 2 before that have been blue. In 2020, it was orange. So, trying to figure out what kind of trend that could indicate. I mean, the big question is are we just living in an era where purple Gatorade is the meta? The other thing you just got to be careful with when you bet this, I mean, purple, blue, depending on the quality of your TV screen, it might be hard to tell if it's actually purple or blue. So you got to make sure that you're betting at a sports book that is able to grade this correctly. I mean, the last thing you want to do is be on support saying, no, sir, I saw with my own 2 eyes that was blue. And they're saying, sorry, our data scientist said it was purple. So lots of things you got to worry about when you're betting the Gatorade color.
Well, you had a perfect opportunity to really just trigger me off the show if you would have called them by their flavor and not the color. Because where I come from, Gatorades don't have flavors. Like if you ask me for an icy breeze frost, I'd have no idea what you're talking about. We deal in colors. Yeah, I did see it was blue 3 of the last 6 years. Purple each of the last 2 Chief wins. So, Geoff, the question I want to ask you is, I mean, the players do choose it, and we also have like the element of kind of athletes being superstitious. So, similar to the way that you mentioned very astutely too, building off Saquon or Jalen Hurts MVP to a Phillies win. Do you think if you like the Chiefs to win, listen, it's plus 200 if you could find it. So do you think that there's like a spot for, hey, these same players have won twice, have had purple. I think they're going to win, and I'm going to put a little bit of scratch on it.
I mean, purple was like, I know I did some research on this last year, and purple was like plus 400. So the fact purple's now the favorite, I think people have kind of clued in, like the Chiefs drink purple Gatorade. So I don't know. There probably is actually something to that. It was
orange in 2020, just for Just for reference sake.
In 2020.
They
So
used
the first
orange
one
in
was orange.
2020.
Okay, fair enough. So the last couple have been purple. I don't know. I would probably just take blue or something like that, but just to be contrarian, because this is just one where I just don't know if there's actually an edge. It's probably just random, but yeah, purple's been the color of the day. I don't know. I mean, as a taste guy, I like purple and blue. So, I mean, orange just gets like sour fast. I can see, like, I wouldn't take orange at plus 250. Yellow and green, I really think it's purple or blue. But like Pete said, maybe just take both so that you're covered in case the TV like is just is makes it, you can't tell. I don't know, and then you're just happy both ways. But
to that point, I hate to actually put some plus EV content on top of this kind of shite Sunday, but you do make a very great point, Geoff, and it's when you think you have two long shots, let's call them, for the same outcome, right, on the same bet, you could split it where either one is a win. And I think that's a great way to attack this. It's also a great way to attack the reception game leader that I mentioned before. I'm going to bring up the receiving yard leader probably right now. How about that for an accidental segue? Unless I think we're all done with the Gatorade stuff. So it's our weirdest bet. I'm going to get to mine. It's really actually strange. So I'll have you guys go first. Geoff, why don't you lead us off this time? I think Pete got the last one. You got anything kind of strange? So I'm assuming if it's not plus 500, it's got to be really, really odd, like a bet on Jason Kelce's knee.
I've got a ton of weird things.
Let's go.
I mean, I mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster. I like Juju to go for 4+ receptions. So on DraftKings, you can go to the old line market. I think this one just makes sense. Like, I mean, I could bring up other stuff, like I like the Anthem over as well, but I think that betting on one player, you're cheering for the same player the whole time. I'm going to go with Schuster. You can get him at 4+ receptions here. I'm just going to get the correct number, but yeah, so 2+ receptions is now down to -185. So his number's actually gone down. But 4+ receptions, +640, and then you can even ladder that up to +1680 for 5+ receptions. So Juju Smith's ladder props is kind of where I'm sprinkling a little bit of dough this week. I like it. I think that he's been more involved. I think he's going to be more involved. So,
all right, I think with the speed of the Philly defense, getting the ball out early to a guy like Juju who's not commanding a lot of attention, it could definitely work. Pete, you want to follow us up?
Yeah, I mean, when you said crazy bets, I guess I didn't know how crazy we want to get, because I did see one sportsbook was offering whether Donna Kelce would show cleavage at the Super Bowl. I'm going to go with the no on that one. It's been a little cold. I think in the Superdome it'll be cold. I don't really think Donna is going to be letting the kids out to play at the Super Bowl. So I think you might have to lay some juice on that, but I would lean strongly to the no there. And I'm not shaming. Like, if she does want, by all means, of course, I'm body positive show around here, but we're just looking to win crazy bets, and I think the no there is pretty sharp.
What was the line? What do you get on cleavage? What's the cost of cleavage now?
I've already said too much. Oh.
Yeah, we haven't said enough. All right, Geoff, if you want to back it up,
because now I'm going to be watching
please lay it on
for
us.
Donna Kelce the entire Super Bowl at this point, and that's all I'm going to be looking for.
Okay, so I'll go. I'm going to try and get the train a little bit back on track. This was, again, I want to tie in my Xavier Worthy to lead the game in receptions with that idea that I mentioned about splitting these bets. We might actually win something. And Devontae Smith, that same bet. So again, you can only hit it once. But he was plus 700. Now, Dallas Goedert is getting a ton of love. And again, if you read the betting life, I got super serious, not knowing that no one else was writing about football this week. So it turns out the only other team to combine the amount of press man with two high safety packages other than the Chiefs were Minnesota. So not to go too far deep in the weeds, but if you could just picture it in your mind, that eats up a lot of bodies. And the kind of subsequent effect of that oftentimes is leaving the center open. Steve Spagnuolo, Italian, notoriously stubborn, has not come away from that all season. and it's really reflected in the spreadsheet as well. Kansas City has given up more receptions to slot wide receivers than anyone, and it's by a country mile. Like literally by a country mile. I think it's over 9.5 per game across the entire season, and I think the next highest team was probably 8. So whether or not I know if Devontae is going to take one and roll with it, you know, the Eagles are very good at tackling. Maybe that becomes a spot where we see this could also play into the DFS portion where DraftKings is PPR, where a guy like Devonta Smith can kind of get the bills paid without maybe even needing to score that touchdown, right? If you get a 9 for 70, that would be great. You'll take that in a single game all day. So I think he's got a pretty good chance of leading the game in receptions as well, but you know, it's reflected in a 7-1. But those are my 2 favorite guys on either side, which also covers different game script, right? Whoever might find themselves in a negative game script, I think we then have their highest volume receiver. And especially in Devontae's case, I just think that number is a little bit high. Not that I have actually quanted this thing out to the nuts and bolts. Geoff, you're up next in the cleanup spot. Crazy bets.
Oh, no, I already gave you mine, Juju Smith-Schuster. But I will say I do like the Anthem over as well. John Batiste probably going to roll out a piano or something. I do think 2 minutes. I think he goes over 2 minutes. So he's at 2 minutes, minus 130. If you need like a novelty bet, yeah, give me the Anthem over.
Okay, I had a 25-1 on the scoregami. And if you wanted to see all that broken down, and I put the entire list of them in the newsletter, make sure you check it out. If it's free, it's for me. Big thanks to Pete Overzet. You are the GOAT. Mr. Ulrich, also the GOAT. I guess that makes me a weird shepherd. So from all the people at MB, Fantasy Life, Betting Life, make sure you check out the stuff. Check us out on socials. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the games. When you're done with the book, enjoy the pay. And we'll see you soon. Peace.